Now, in the preterit, though, there are rules for irregulars, but the rules are different, but we still consider them irregular. The only thing that makes things irregular in the preterit is that we don't use accent marks, okay? So even though these do follow rules, they're considered irregular because there are no accent marks, okay? Now, first up, I want to say the easy ones, but they're still kind of hard. Okay? These are the true irregulars, with the exception of hacer. All right, you can skip hacer for now, don't pay attention to it. But these are the true irregulars. And what do I mean by true irregulars? You just have to memorize them. There's no like rhyme or reason. You know, just like voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van, soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. You know, there's no logic to why verbs are conjugated a certain way. That's these, okay? So, first off, what does dar mean?
To give.
To give, okay? So, now, even though I said these are the true irregulars, dar is not a 100% true irregular. It's an AR verb, but with the ER, IR endings. Di, diste, dio, dimos, distes, dio. Okay? At best, we can call it a confused verb, I guess, because it's using the wrong endings. All right? And of course, like I said, when it comes to the preterit, there's no accent marks. All right? So, like, if you were to do a verb like comer, you know, comí, comiste, comió, you would have accent marks, all right? For this, you don't. So it's basically just the ER verb endings on an AR verb, all right? Obviously, you can either try to remember that or di, diste, dio, dimos, distes, dieron, okay? We'll cover hacer in a minute. Like I said, this is from a different textbook, so we're not going to count this one. Now, you get 2 for the price of 1. What does ir mean?
To go.
To go. What does ser mean?
To be.
To be. In the preterit, ir and ser are identical. Okay? And just like in English, they are true irregulars. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Soy, eres, es, somos, sois, son. Okay? In Spanish, fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. Okay? So what do I mean here that they're the same? Yo fui means both I went and I was. How do you know the difference? The context. Okay? So, yo fui estudiante. And I'm going to add el año pasado. Año pasado means last year. So I went a student last year? No, okay? In this case, and I know in English, you know, oh, I went out with. Well, we don't use that expression in Espanol, okay? So yo fui estudiante el año. So it's not I went a student, it's I was a student last year, okay? And lo siento, that should be an A. Yo fui a California el año pasado. I was California last year. All right, you might have been, but no. In this case, it's I went to California last year. All right. Now, a little bit of a cheating hint. If you think back to chapter 3, all right, when we learned the verb ir, remember that ir is one of those verbs that always, a billion, jillion times always has the a immediately after it, okay? If there is no a, guess what? it means was. Okay? If there's an then more than likely, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but more than likely it means went. Okay? But you just have to remember, fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. Fui, fuiste, fue, fuimos, fuisteis, fueron. Okay? Now, if you need to look at it, okay, you can go down to, on page 222, ir and ser are the first two, okay, that are the true irregulars. And then if you skip down to about the middle, dar is there, and it gives you all of the forms. So if you want, you can memorize di, diste, dio, dimos, diste, dieron, or you can try to just remember it's an AR verb, but it uses ER endings, okay, minus the accent marks. All right, now, preguntas first off. Because now we get to the hard ones. And it's not prefiero, but we need to make it smaller. Depending on the textbook, I forget how many they put here, okay? But these verbs, they're irregular, but they do follow a pattern. All right, there is a set of rules for it, okay? So first off, does anyone know what the verb, and let me make sure they don't tell you. Does anyone know what andar means?
To go.
Either to go, it's more to walk. It's another way to say to walk, all right? It also means like, how are you? Because in South America, people use it to ask you how you're doing. They ask, ¿Cómo andas? Like, how are you doing? Literally what the saying is, how do you walk? Or at least my Mexican mind, that's what I thought. And so I'd be like, con los pies, with my feet. That's how I walk. Even though they're like, haha, funny Mexican. Even though they were asking me, like, how are you doing? Okay, so andar means to walk, all right? Does anyone remember estar? To be. Okay, it's our other to be. Okay. Poder. That's poner.
Can.
To be able to or can. Okay, to be able to. All right. Now, Logan, poner. To put or to place. All right, muy bien. Does anyone remember saber?
To know.
To know, but specifically to know what?
Know somebody? No.
Knowledge.
No.
Yes, knowledge, facts, information, or how to do things. Okay? And then, does anyone remember tener? To have. Okay? Now, we did dar already. Okay? And even though on the previous slide it had hacer, I said to skip it because we'll do it right here. Does anyone remember what hacer means? To make or to do. Muy bien. To do or to make. Querer. To want. Whoever said that, muy bien. I had a couple people say it. Venir. To come, muy bien. Excelente. And then finally, the last two. Decir. What is decir?
To say.
To say or to tell. Okay. And then traer.
Bring.
To bring. All right. Now, your textbook literally just gives you, what they are, okay? But I've always taught it this way. You have to change the verb first, okay? And you're like, Santos, but isn't that what we're doing? Well, no, you have to do a change before the change. You're pre-gaming the change, okay? And it's not a stem changer, because you're not actually changing the stem, you're changing everything. Andar becomes anduv. Estar becomes estuv. Poder becomes pud. Poner becomes pus. Saber becomes soup. Don't say sup. All right. Tener becomes tuv. Hacer becomes hic. All right. It's going to be pronounced like an S though. Querer becomes quis. Venir becomes vin. Decir becomes di. And traer becomes da. Okay? So, they change into this. All right? Like I said, your textbook literally just writes them all out for you. But if you go to the very bottom, okay, it actually does what Senor Santos is doing up here as kind of like the alternate way. I've always taught it like this and told students, if you really just want to memorize all of those verbs, feel free to, but it's a lot more stuff to remember, okay? Now, you take all of these, all right, and you add the irregular endings. Okay, those endings only go with dos, cuatro, seis, ocho, with these 11 verbs. Okay, only with these 11. The AR, the ER, the IR verbs we learned in the last chapter, they have their own endings. These endings only with these. Okay, so for example, if I ask, let's say, well, on Monday, I will ask Lauren, where were you today? Where were you on Friday? Because no está, she was absent. Donde, because she's my student and she's younger than me. Estuve, iste. Donde estuviste el viernes? Where were you on Friday? And she says, change it to estuve, because she's talking in the yo form. You add an E. Estuve en casa. I was home. Okay, I was sick. Estuve enferma. So estuve en casa. So I stayed home. I was at home. Okay. I can look over at Logan and say, hey, did you bring your book? Logan, tra, once again in the tu form, iste. So trajiste el libro. And she would say, sí, Señor Santos. It's tra, the yo ending. Traje mi libro. I brought my book. All right. It can get a little intimidating. It can get just a little bit overwhelming. All right, but trust me, once you have this down, and like I said, these endings, and just as an FYI, I know I said these are the only endings for these irregulars. It's just a combination of the other ones. These are your AR endings. These are your ER endings, all right? Remember, the only thing that makes them irregular is that there's no accent mark. But that's the pattern that you follow. All right. Now, there are a couple of things, okay? And I'm going to start with rojo, okay? Hacer. In this form, okay? We change the C to a Z. Because hice, hiciste, hicimos, it's what we call a soft C, and we only get soft C sounds before E's and I's. What happens when you put a C before an O? It's a hard sound. It's actually O's, A's, and U's. It is not iso, it's ico. And ico is not the word. So what do we do with that C? Change it into a Z. And so now it's iso. Okay? If you put hiko, I'm going to have to mark it wrong. Okay, D laughs. Santos, don't pronounce the H. All right, eco. All right, I said hiko. All right, but yeah, iso. All right. Now, let's go with negro. There's more verbs that do this, but because in this chapter, the only two you got were decir and traer. If you use it in the ellos, ellas, ustedes, okay, you drop the I. So if I wanted to say they said, it will be ellos dijeron. If I want to say they brought, ellos trajeron. Okay? The spelling needs to change, and so does the pronunciation. All right? Now, just as an FYI, even native speakers get this wrong when it comes to both spelling and pronunciation. Students have caught me twice in my 19 years of teaching saying, trajeron los libros, and someone raises their hand, Santos, you just said that wrong. I'm like, what? You said trajeron, not trajeron. And I'm like, you just got bonus. All right, you caught Santos. All right, so yes, so even native speakers can kind of forget, and especially, I'm not trying to be rude, but especially if they didn't study like grammar like in school, because I know if I ask y'all like English grammar questions, very few of you could probably answer. Like Logan's laughing, yeah, I probably couldn't ask you like tell you why the E is pronounced this way and that way, and or other things, or what's the difference between lie and lay, and which one's appropriate to use. You guys are like, yeah, no, no, and this is just an FYI. I actually caught something, and I'm like, you guys spelt this wrong. You guys wrote this wrong, and people hate me for that. You can only use lay if you have a direct object. All right. So if you say I lay down, there's no direct object. Down is not a direct object. Down is an adverb. I lie down. Now, correct. Okay? If you say I lay the book on the table, direct object, the book. It is I lay the book on the table. All right? So, same thing. All right? And like literally, I've seen like legal documents, and I'm just like, dude, this should be lie. you totally did it wrong. And so yes, all right. So dijeron, trajeron, and if you catch Senor Santos, I will also give you bonus because that's how I stay on my toes. All right, with that. Okay. For you guys though, then yes, you do need the spelling correctly. Okay. The last verb, donde está? Here we go. H-A-Y. Does anyone remember what I means? There is or there are. Now, I is what we call an impersonal, because nothing or no one is ising or aring. You're just literally stating that something exists. The preterit of I is ubo, H-U-B-O. So if I is, there is, or there are, what would ubo mean? There was or there were. Okay? So later today, when someone says, Senor Santos, how was your Spanish class? Did all of your students show up despite it being, rainy or cloudy and it being a Friday? And I will say, sí, hubo muchos estudiantes. Okay, we're literally only missing dos. All right, so hubo estudiantes, there were a lot of students. Okay?